Kevin?
Listo, estamos en vivo.
Ok. Ok, perfecto. Espero que esté funcionando todo. Creo que ya podemos empezar.
Yep, we're live.
Ok. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I want to extend the warmest welcome to our speakers and audience to today's webinar. My name is Diana Pastor, and I am Maya Quiche from Guatemala, currently working as the media coordinator for Cultural Survival. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. This event is being live streamed on Cultural Survival Facebook page and YouTube page, and it's being recorded and will be posted in our website, www.cs.org, and interpretation is available in Spanish. So if you can go, please, on the globe icon on the bottom navigation bar to choose your language. It will be better for understand this webinar. So, hay interpretación es disponible en español. Por favor, para acceder necesitan hacer clic en el icono del pequeño mundo en la parte inferior de la pantalla para elegir español. The questions and answers will take place at the very end of this presentation if time permits. So please use the Q&A function to ask for your questions. If you like what you learned in this webinar, please consider to donate to Cultural Survival at cs.org/donate. I also would like to talk a little bit about Cultural Survival for those who are with us for the first time. We are an organization that is hosting this webinar today, and as a 51-year-old NGO and Indigenous-led nonprofit based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We have 38 staff in 10 different countries around the world, majority women and majority Indigenous. Cultural Survival advocates for Indigenous peoples' rights and supports Indigenous communities' self-determination, cultures, and political resilience since 1972. Cultural Survival envisions a future that respects and honors Indigenous people, inherent rights, and dynamic cultures, deeply and richly interwoven in lands, languages, spiritual traditions, as well as artistic expression, rooted in self-determination and self-governance. We do this through a four-pronged approach when making advocacy, capacity building, and communications. Thank you again for being here. We are also very excited to announce that our Cultural Survival Bazaars will be back after a pause of 4 years due to the pandemic. The Cultural Survival Bazaars are festivals of Indigenous arts and cultures that have been organized since 1975. We are lucky to have our new Bazaar event manager here, Candice Testa, with us today, and a long-time Bazaar artist, Sierra Henrys, as well. She's here. If you are in the Boston area, be sure to mark your calendars on December 14 to 17. Please visit us at the Prudential Center. I also would like to say that for us as an organization, it's important to show the wonderful stories of those who represent their cultures through different fields. And this time, our panel, Indigenous Arts, Women Together, Our Communities, Past, Present, and Future, is a space to learn of the stories of 4 different Indigenous artists who come from different cultures and backgrounds, but who share elements in common. So, I also would like to tell you that we had In our June issue, the Cultural Survival Quarterly is dedicated to art and artists who honor the knowledge and wisdom of their peoples and their communities through their works. Before I introduce our panelists, I would like to tell you that you can read some articles about our panelists through the links we will copy in the left bar on the chat session. So now I will read a short bio of each of our panelists, and I will start with Candice Testa, who is Pequot and is, as I mentioned before, our Bazaar Manager events at Cultural Survival. Candice lives with her community on the Mashantucket Reservation in Connecticut. Candice holds a bachelor's degree in anthropology from the University of Rhode Island and a master's degree in cultural sustainability from Goucher College. For the past 2 decades, she has dedicated herself to assisting in the revitalization of her people's language and culture, and she is also a talented artist. So welcome, Candice. We also have Jaina Schroeder-Meyer, who is Chamorro, is a migratory theater artist currently working in Wuhan, Mariana Island. She was born and raised in Southern California, and she is a diasporic Chamorro with ancestral ties to the island of Saipan and Wuhan. As a cultural survival indigenous youth fellow, Jaina worked with Breaking Wave Theater Company in Wuhan on the development of the oral storytelling project. And Jaina is recently graduated from Boston University with a bachelor's degree in theater arts. We also have Sierra Henrys. Nipmuc has been drawing and experimenting with many different materials and visual mediums since she was young. Her Nipmuc heritage and her family's involvement with the native community has shaped her desire to express Eastern Woodlands traditional art forms in her own unique way. She eventually became interested in working with birch bark. We also have Paula Nicho, who is Maya Cachiquel, originally from San Juan Comalapa in Guatemala. And San Juan Comalapa is Chichot in Maya Cachiquel language. Paula is an international known artist and has shown her art in different countries around the world. She began as a weaver and then became part of a collective of women surrealist painters in her municipality. Paula draws upon her dreams for inspiration. Her work is included in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian and among other museums. So I will give a space now so they can say hi and they can tell us how are they doing and probably add something that I might have forgotten in the reading of the short bios. I will start with Candice.
Kuikwasanamu, good morning, everyone. Kuikwasanamu means good morning, or more literally, you are in the light. Kuikwasanamu in the Pequot language. Again, my name is Candice Testa. I am a member of the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation, and thank you, Deanna, for the warm opening, and thank you to Cultural Survival for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of what I love and hold dear, which is Indigenous art. I am a beadwork artist. Beadwork art is definitely what has inspired me the most, and I'll talk more about that later. As Deanna said, I have spent the past 20 years working on behalf of my community. They have given me so much, and I'm very blessed. And so I wanted to learn as much as I could to give back to my community. And the ways of doing that is by learning beadwork and sharing beadwork classes in order to teach and inspire other people to want to bead. So as an Indigenous woman, I learned that I'm most content, most fulfilled, the happiest when I'm creating and sharing what I've learned and what I've created with others. I'm currently working as the Bazaar Events Manager for Cultural Survival, and in this capacity supporting artists. We're searching for vendors, entertainers, and demonstrators for this ever-growing festival. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And I look forward to hearing from all of the artists.
Thank you, Candice. Just a reminder that you have interpretation available on the globe icon on the bottom. Ahora es un gusto para mí darle el espacio a Paula Nicho. Por favor, si puede presentarse y comentarnos cómo está el día de hoy.
Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Paula Nicho Gómez, originario aquí de San Juan, Comalapa. Bueno, en primer lugar, me cuento un poco lo que estaba haciendo. Cuando yo era pequeña, mi madre me enseñó el arte de tejer y poco a poco me dio esa oportunidad de agarrar el pincel y así a través de mis sueños, a través de todo lo que estamos escuchando, viendo, así viene mi inspiración a través de la pintura.
Muchas gracias, Paula. Now we will give the space to Jaina.
Hafade, hello, Guahusi Jaina Sotomayor. I'm currently in Guahan in the Mariana Islands. It's an unincorporated territory of the United States located in Micronesia. It is 12:10 a.m. for me here. So I'm on the other side of the globe from, I think, most of the people in the Zoom room. I'm a theater artist, actor, director, writer, and a constant continuous student. I'm honored to be a part of this panel and to be amongst these incredible women. So thank you, Cultural Survival, for having me.
Thank you, Jaina. And now we will move to Sierra.
Good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Sierra Henrys. I am Chibanagungamog Nipmuc. So traditionally from the place that we now call Southern New England, but have lived my life in Wabanaki territory at the intersection of what would be Penobscot and Passamaquoddy homelands in the place that we now know as Maine. And it's a gorgeous day here. I'm really, really happy to be sitting outside and joining you all in this capacity. And yeah, my work is with birch bark. I'm a line artist and a pyrography or wood burning artist. And I interpret those things through birch bark work. And it's something that I have been on a journey with, and it's helped me explore my own culture and my communities. And yeah, it's been something that has helped me experience many wonderful things. So I'm really grateful to be here with you all, and thank you to Cultural Survival for having us.
Thank you so much, Sierra, and everyone who are present, our panelists, and also the people who are saying hi in the chat. We have people from Nepal, we have people from Toronto, from Ecuador. Yeah, many people. I'm very happy that so many people from different places will listen to the stories of these four interesting and important artists, Indigenous artists. So I cannot mention everyone, but I am reading everything here. Washington, England, Minnesota, New York, Finland. Thank you so much. And Panama too. I will start then with the questions for each of our panelists, and I will explain how it will be the dynamic. We have 4 different questions, and the 4 panelists will be answering, taking turns to answer the same question. Each panelist has more or less 3 minutes to answer the question, and I will start asking Candice, and I will be mentioning the names. And I will start with the first question. We would like to know, and for sure the audience is asking themselves, how did your career in art start? many people want to be artists, and for sure we have artists in the audience, and there may be also some people who would like to start, and maybe they can learn from your experience. So tell us your story about your art.
Thank you, Deanna. That's a great question. I honestly believe that most people are artists, that we have the capability to express ourselves in an artistic way. And we are, well, here in America and amongst Indigenous people, we are very visual, and there is art everywhere you look, whether or not you identify it as art. I'd like to thank my parents for instilling the love of art in me. My father, his very existence on this earth was artistic. He was very unique, and everything he did was just different. He put his own touch upon it. And my mother was always creating things with her hands. So I grew up watching her make mittens and hats and ornaments and Christmas wreaths. So she was always very creative. My first experience with beadwork happened at the Mashantucket Pequot Museum and Research Center with a woman by the name of Toni Whedon. And she taught me about tension and how to select different colors. And I made a piece of loom beadwork. And I was very proud of my very first piece of beadwork. And I thought it was beautiful. And I showed everyone, and they told me how lovely this beadwork was. And of course, as the years go by, this memory lets me know just how kind people are, because that first piece of beadwork was not lovely. It had many mistakes in it, but I was very proud of it. And then as a few years went by, I attended some more beading classes, and this time at the Tamaqua Museum in Rhode Island. And I took classes with Lorenz Spears, Narragansett. And I religiously went to her classes each week, and I was just very much enamored with the atmosphere of being around lots of other artists who all are inspired to learn this one skill. And there was a camaraderie there, and the conversations that we had let me know that not only did I love beading, but I loved being in workshops with other people. And the last thing I'd like to mention is at the Mashantucket Pequot Museum and Research Center, there was an exhibit that came through, a temporary exhibit called Sing Me a Story, Dance Me Home. And it came from the California tribes. And I remember going in and seeing this vase that was fully beaded, and it was just exquisite. And that was the first time I had an experience where I was like, wow, this feels like I'm having a spiritual experience looking at this artwork. And although I can't say that I've ever created anything that would make someone feel like that, it is a goal. There is something to be said about viewing something that was made with such care and intention.
Thank you so much, Candy. That's a very good start to. It's really good to see art from a different perspective. You said something, everything has like an artist, or can be an artist, and probably just need some help from our environment. Quiero continuar con Paula, por favor, con la misma pregunta. Si nos puede comentar cómo empezó su carrera en el arte y nos cuente un poquito de su historia personal, por favor. Paula, adelante.
Cuando yo era pequeña, mi mamá me enseñó el arte de tejer en telar de cintura, y gracias que dominé ese arte. Y luego empecé a pintar sobre cartón, sobre papel, sobre cartulina, y me gustó. Y luego cuando crecí y escuché un comentario que decía que hay clases de pintura en una escuela, y porque eso siempre me gustaba cuando era pequeña, y y atreví de entrarme. Y luego me enamoré de todo lo que nos enseñaron, las mezclas de colores sobre paleta y también agarrar un pincel, cómo se puede, y eso es lo que me enamoró mucho. Y trabajé sobre papel, sobre lienzos ya grandes y pequeños. Y eso es lo que siempre tengo en mi corazón. Estoy muy agradecida con mi mamá, que en paz descansa, me dejó un gran legado para trabajar en telar, trabajar con ella. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Paula, for this introduction about your life in art. I also would like to ask Sierra, how did your career in art start? If you can tell us what happened to make you an artist.
Well, like others before me, I have to speak about my parents and their creativity. My mom, Lisa, she is an amazing line artist herself. She doesn't spend as much time with it as she used to, but she used to create these amazing, intricate paintings that were just so delicate and fine. And I remember sitting at her feet as a young person and just thinking to myself, how is it even possible that you can do that you can create these amazing designs? And I knew that I needed to practice, and I needed to get to her level at some point. And so she's really instrumental in helping me shape what I do with line work. And then, of course, my father, he is an amazing flute maker, and he works with all different types of woods and spent many years creating flutes completely by hand, just hand tools and fire, and also composes his own songs. And they're a traditional style of flute that not many people are making today. So it's a very old style that just a very small handful of people are carrying on today, him being one of them. And so, of course, I have lots of inspiration from him as well. And, through both of them, I was able to explore working with different tools and mediums and such ever since I was a baby, basically. I can remember being taught how to carve with a knife when I was 3 or 4 years old, and just learning those skills at a very young age. And so there's a way in which creating is just inherently part of my world. It's part of my life. And I feel really grateful for the stepping stones they've laid out for me, because it's also meant that I've got to share in a lot of the travels that they've been on and start participating in art shows such as the Cultural Survival Bazaars for many, many years now. And also through those travels, making connections with other communities and other artists that just are so inspirational that how could I not come home and feel inspired to make things? How could I not create? And so that's where I feel like everything started. It's just always kind of inherently part of my world, and it was an easy way to kind of step into that role of making art.
Thank you so much for sharing, Sierra. I also would like to give the space to Jaina. Please tell us your story and how did you start in art?
I fell in love with theater at a very young age. My grandpa claims I started doing theater because the first time I went back to Saipan, the island my mom was from, to visit my grandparents there, my grandma signed me up to sing in church, and my grandpa was like, you went back to California, and after that time you sang in church, your mom put you in theater right away. But my mom claims it's because I just love to sing and dance around the house as a kid. And what I fell in love about the art form of theater is that it's inherently rooted in community. It is an art form that can't be created alone and has to be shared with others in order to be experienced. And that's what I really love about theater now. Although as I continued working in theater and diving deeper into the craft, I really realized how a lot of the stories that are presented on stages, especially across the United States, are Eurocentric or Western stories and Western practices. And so as I was getting more serious about the craft, I began questioning why are the stories we're putting on stage the ones that are being represented? Why are certain stories not being represented? And how can I continue to work to share stories that haven't been told and haven't been given space on the stage? Because storytelling is something that is inherent to cultures across the world. And in the Chamorro culture, like storytelling has ancient roots. Like we've been talking story for as long as we've been alive, as long as we've existed. And I think that the nature of Indigenous people to be storytelling, the nature of Chamorro people to talk story and to share lessons and history from tongue to ear can be intrinsically tied to theater. And so what I'm trying to do now in my work is create more spaces on stage for Chamorro stories, for writing Chamorro plays, and bringing more Indigenous voices to theater.
Thank you so much, Jaina. I see that we already have some questions in the question and answer section. I'm very happy about that. And actually, one of the questions from Wara Wara Mamamni, it's our next question. We would like to know, what is your inspiration or recurring themes when you create artistic works? And I will start again with Candice. You can tell us, what do you think about when you create art?
I'm most inspired by my Indigenous homelands here in Connecticut, and especially the Mashantucket Reservation. I walk the land here often, and I see patterns and I see plants, and there's some plants that you just see over and over again. So I feel like I need to honor it by beading the plant. And I'm also inspired by doing something that promotes the continuation of personal, spiritual, cultural expression. So knowing that I'm doing something by embellishing either a jean jacket or making a pair of beaded earrings, or making a loom bracelet, that I'm continuing the legacy, that I am doing what my ancestors did, and I'm hoping that my own children will be inspired to also bead or practice some kind of Indigenous art expression or expression of Indigenous art. And I'm also very motivated by the fact that you see, when I would offer classes here within Mashantucket, and you see the pride on people's faces that they learned something that they've been wanting to learn, or maybe historical trauma had prevented them from wanting to learn something. And there's even shame embedded in the fact that you don't just naturally know everything already that's Indigenous and in regards to your community or your culture, and to see the pride that they are learning a skill and carrying it on, and even far surpassing me, because I am a beginner in most things. With beadwork, I draw from nature. I learn from the plants that I bead, and by sharing my own artwork with my community, I hope to inspire others to pick up the needle and the thread and to bead as well.
Thank you so much, Candice. La misma pregunta para Paula también. Paula, ¿cuál es su inspiración cuando crea sus obras? ¿Cuáles son los temas sobre los cuales está pintando frecuentemente? Si nos puede contar.
Bueno, en cuanto a mi inspiración a la naturaleza, a mí me inspira mucho, porque siempre nuestra madre naturaleza es como una madre, nos da de todo, nos da la vegetación, de qué comer, y eso es lo más principal para nuestra cultura, porque todo eso tiene, para nuestra cultura todo tiene un espíritu, tienen vida. Por ejemplo, los cerros, las montañas, un nacimiento de agua, y todo eso tenemos que respetar. Me gusta mucho inspirarme por la naturaleza y también, por decirlo, la música, y nos da ese sentimiento de todo lo que ha pasado, todo lo que nos ha sucedido. Podemos expresar en todo eso. Y también, por ejemplo, ver otras personas trabajando como decirlo, pues, de que el arte nos inspira de todo. A través de nuestras historias tenemos que dejar plasmado sobre un lienzo.
Muchísimas gracias, Paula. Before we move to Jaina, I would like to say hi to the people who are writing us some messages from Cameroon, from Cayuga, from India, from Botswana. I'm very happy so many people came to listen to your stories. It's important to share our stories as Indigenous peoples and as people that want to know more about Indigenous. I think it's important to understand how art is something that connects cultures, and it's good to know from Switzerland there also. So I will give the space now to Jaina, and the same question as well, how everything in art started.
I'm inspired by community and collaboration. I think working with other people brings out the most in my work, especially with how collaborative theater is as an art form. And I especially love bringing new works to life, new plays that haven't been told before, and bringing a story to life for the first time on the stage, whether it's a written work that we're bringing to life, or devising a work through movement and a combination of different mediums. That's what inspires me most. And recent themes in my work have been related to families and family stories, and also inspired by interviews with family members, from other people's family members, and I'm inspired by my own family as well.
Thank you so much. And now I will also ask Sierra, how do you start with your art, and what is your inspiration and your recurrent topics?
Yeah, so I'm God, the list of inspirations could go on for days. Definitely deeply inspired by nature, by the world around me, of which we are part of. And sometimes that manifests in the actual interpretation of, a piece that I make looking like something from nature, maybe a leaf or a whale or what have you. But oftentimes it's also just the energetic inspiration that I get from it. Maybe I go and spend some time with the whales, like I just got to do a couple days ago, And I just feel so full and nourished and happy to have witnessed such amazing beings existing in the world, that then I have to take that energy and put it into something, you know, and to create something. And it doesn't necessarily end up looking like a whale, but it's that energy needs a place to go. And so I'll oftentimes create things with that energy that I've gathered from the world around me. I'm also really deeply inspired by ancestral works, and when I say ancestral, I of course mean from my own cultural background, but also just ancestral works from all across the world. I look back at pieces that were made when time moved a little differently, when maybe we were not in quite as much of a rush as we are today, and the incredible amount of skill and talent that went into pieces, you know, from the 18th century, from the 17th century, are they just awe me, you know, they put me in awe. And I oftentimes think to myself, like, wow, you know, how can I do that in my own life? How can I do that in my own world? And it caused me to pause and to try to slow down and to take my time with my work, and remember that those art exists today because people took that with. They spent that energy and with those pieces in order to create something amazing. And so I just feel very called to at least reaching that goal. I don't know that I ever will. I feel deeply inspired by them, and yeah, just it's a good goal to reach for.
Thank you so much, Sierra. We are finding some points in common, and I don't want to talk deeply on this because that will be for the final, but we can see that as we have different artists, we always find some elements that connect Indigenous peoples. I will go to the next question just because I'm getting more and more questions from the public, so we will try to answer most of them. And I will like to know, what are your greatest achievements as an artist, and what has given you satisfaction in your career? And I will start with Candice.
Oh, my greatest achievement, I think I spoke on it earlier, and that is you know, inspiring people to want to also bead by showing the works that I've done. I've received a lot of attention from some beaded hair ties that have our tribal seal, which tells the story of our community. It has a tree, because our reservation is Mashantucket and Much Wooded Place. There's a fox on it because we're known as the Fox people. And then there is the signature of a sachem that, you know, helped to bring us all back to our homelands during the time of colonization. And so I beaded these hair ties, and it whenever people see them, you know, they express, you know, awe at them, and you know, wanting to know how much they cost. And unlike most artists, I haven't sold a lot of my work. It's mainly either been for my own regalia or for my daughters. But in regards to a moment that gave me, you know, deep satisfaction vending art was when I made lots of baby moccasins, beaded moccasins, and I would sit at a table at the Foxwoods Resort and Casino while people were walking by, and it didn't matter who it was that walked by my table, if it was, you know, a man, a woman, a young child, or an elder, they would go, "Aw, you know, look at these cute little baby moccasins," and I would sell out of all of them. Every time I make them, they all go, regardless of whether or not they have a baby. It's just seeing them evoked an emotion, and it made them feel good. So that was definitely a moment that gave me satisfaction. But I think nothing really fills me as deeply as when I would teach classes to our tribal youth, and they would share their creativity, their art. And this one in particular time that I'm remembering, they were making Christmas ornaments. And so they beaded these Christmas ornaments. And then when their parents would come to pick them up, they would show them. And so the child was very proud of what they made, and then seeing the pride on the parents' face also. So that was, that was very much what fills me and would give me, the fuel I need to continue on the path of sharing. And I think that's one of the reasons I was so drawn to the position here at Cultural Survival, to work as the events manager for the art bazaars, is because providing an opportunity for people to share their artwork with others, so that they're, and especially Indigenous art, to be able to witness people have that kind of reaction to artwork that was so lovingly made.
Thank you so much, Candice. Those are very good examples of how an artist can have this feeling and share the feeling when someone is admiring the art that you create. Voy a continuar con Paula y le haré la misma pregunta, Paula. Queremos saber qué satisfacciones ha tenido como artista y de los logros más grandes que ha tenido.
Gracias a la vida, al creador y al formador del universo, que me ha dado ese don de hacer arte. Y estoy muy también agradecido con ustedes por todo el trabajo que están haciendo, por dar a conocer qué somos nosotros, porque cada persona tiene su forma de trabajar, su forma de inspirar en cualquier cosa. Para mí estoy muy agradecida, y también todo mi sueño se ha realizado porque he visto otros lugares nacionales e internacionales para dar a conocer lo que estoy haciendo. Y también agradezco a todos ustedes por el trabajo que están haciendo por nosotros, por dar a conocer.
Muchas gracias, Paula. I would like to go next with Jaina. If you can tell us your biggest satisfactions, good experiences, and achievements.
So I'm, very early career, so it's really a blessing to be amongst this panel. So I think one of the greatest achievements and most satisfying projects I've done is the one that Cultural Survival supported earlier this year and at the end of last year. It's called the Oral Storytelling Project with Breaking Wave Theater Company here in Guam. And it's brought 5 new Chamorro playwrights, 5 Chamorro writers together to create a new piece of theater inspired by interviews that each of them conducted with an elder in their family. And so each writer chose someone whose story they wanted to capture or whose legacy they wanted to preserve. And we've been workshopping and writing and collaborating for the past over a year now. And we just had our last rehearsal here in Guam just last night, and we're sharing it with audiences for the first time tomorrow. So that has been one of the most challenging and rewarding projects for me, to meet Chamorro people in Guam and across the United States. We have a wide team with a wide variety of experiences, and each of them was really passionate about bringing Chamorro stories to the stage and about honoring the elder that they chose to interview. And so it's been beautiful watching them emerge as more confident writers and to write for theater for the first time, and to bring in local actors to rehearse the piece. And it's a beautiful collection of different stories from 5 different families. So that has been the most satisfying project I've done to date. And I'm very grateful to Cultural Survival for helping make it happen.
Thank you, Jaina. We are happy as an organization to support artists like you and all of you in different ways. Sierra, can you also share with us your inspirations and achievements?
Yeah, like you said, there's going to be some reoccurring themes here. I feel like for me, art is definitely a bridge building tool and a connectivity tool. And so oftentimes I'll get the question about, oh, do you have a shop online, or do you have this, or do you have that online? And everything's, about being online. And obviously those things are very important and are really helpful tools. But I always like to share with people that my preference is to travel to art shows and to be with people in person and to be able to speak to them face to face and have those connections and share stories. I feel like for me personally, there's not much better than having someone come up to the table and pick up a piece and have it spark a memory about their grandmother or about their child, or have someone say, oh, I'm gonna splurge a little extra on this for my wife for our anniversary, or those stories, those moments of connection are what's the most fulfilling to me, and it's what motivates me as well to continue to do my work. And it's just kind of blows me away when someone who has been working with birch bark or whatever medium for much longer than me comes up to me and looks at a piece of my art and says, hey, that's pretty good. Like that type of acknowledgement really truly feels like a huge achievement to me, to be able to be honored in even the slightest way by others who have been carrying on these art forms for many decades, if not lifetimes. And so when a friend feels inspired enough to get a piece of my art as a tattoo or to hang it in their house on their wall, those are the moments when I just feel like my art is worthy, it's worth something. So those are my greatest achievements.
Thank you, Sierra. And on a brief note, I have a sticker of you in my cell phone. And so, yeah, there you go. I would like to go to the last question. And then we will go to a bunch of different questions that we have from the audience. But I would like you to share, how do you think Indigenous art is important for the expression and survival of Indigenous peoples' cultures? And I will start again with Candice.
That's such a great question. I think Indigenous art is very important. It's an expression of not only our waking world, but of our dream world, our spiritual world. It expresses our hopes and dreams for the future. Indigenous art, it also connects us, many of us, to our ancestral lands, and reflecting the relationship that we have with the land and the waters and the sky, and with our cosmology, how we view the world. So through Indigenous art, we get to experience many different ways of seeing and being and feeling. You may feel something that is new and unexpected. And for many Indigenous people, sharing their art and selling their art is their main source of livelihood. This is how they're making money for their families. And so by purchasing Indigenous art, directly from the artist, you're supporting different ways of life, and especially ways of life of people who still have that deep connection to the earth. We're all connected, whether we're aware of it or not. And there are people who are just a little bit more aware. So I think it's really good to support those people. And if I could have a plug for cultural survival for my own position, the Cultural Survival Bazaar will take place in December from 14th to the 17th at the Prudential Center in Boston. And I encourage all of you to come out, or as many of you who can, to come out and purchase art directly from Indigenous people, and knowing that you are doing more than buying a piece of artwork, that you are supporting Indigenous ways of life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candice. Paula, también queremos saber cómo piensa que el arte ayuda a los pueblos indígenas a expresarse y a preservar su cultura.
A través de un lienzo tenemos que sentirnos qué vamos a hacer, ya que nuestros abuelos siempre nos han dejado todo lo que es las historias. Por medio del arte aprendí a valorar y compartir todo lo que nuestros abuelos nos han sembrado a cada uno. En nuestro pueblo hay distintas manifestaciones de arte, como la música, el teatro, la poesía. Entonces, todo eso tenemos que dejar a las futuras generaciones qué es lo que nos trae el arte, qué es lo que nos da. Y eso es lo que siento en mi corazón, para dejar a las futuras generaciones lo que tenemos y lo que tenemos que ver más adelante. Y también me ha dado todo lo que miro, porque, por ejemplo, nuestra madre naturaleza estaba sufriendo mucho por tanta contaminación que estamos haciendo, y eso es lo que siempre me duele en mi corazón. Ojalá que seamos conscientes de no manchar más, de no contaminar más, para que un futuro lejano, pues, de que nosotros tenemos que dejar esa herencia para las futuras generaciones, que sea más honrado y digno.
Gracias, Paula. Thank you so much for what you share. And just in a brief comment, Paula comes from the most artistic village in Guatemala. I have a pending invitation to visit her, as I will take advantage. We are living in the same country. I am really excited to see her gallery in her town. We also want to learn from Jaina, what do you think why it's important to express as Indigenous peoples through art, and how it helps us to survive our cultures?
I feel that art is very healing. It is a healing practice to participate in the creation of art, especially within theater, of storytelling. Like storytelling for me is a connection with self and ancestors and the past, and also like what Paula said about stories for the future and preserving things for future generations. And so I believe that theater as an art form has incredible healing capacities for those who participate in making it and in sharing it with an audience, and experiencing that shared experience.
Thank you so much. And finally, Sierra, the same question.
Yeah, well, first, I just want to take this moment to acknowledge and say that if you are an Indigenous person out there being creative in any form, you know, whether it be any of the things we're doing here, or music, or building a house, or dance, or just being creative in any form, that your art is extremely important and valid as Indigenous art and very much needed in the world. So feel proud of yourself for being an Indigenous person, just existing in the world. And then, you know, if you're sharing things as well through any form of art, then that is amazing, you know, and really just a wonderful gift to the world. And yeah, I think that, as I said before, in art can be such a bridge building opportunity. And so I think that there continues to be a lot of misconceptions out in the world, a lot of misunderstandings about Indigenous people in the world. And, you know, the art is a way to convey our stories, a way to convey our truths, and have it in a welcoming way, you know, a way that people can feel safe asking questions and sharing with each other. And so I might be repeating again what others said, but I think there's many teachings and stories and values that get passed along inherently by making art as an Indigenous person. And I think it's just absolutely critical, you know, that we have these methods for expressing ourselves, for sharing these stories and the energy that we carry. And I think it's inherently part of our life too, you know. The art forms that have been carried on for years are things like building canoes to practically go fishing in, you know, they're needed things, or witus to live in, and all of the things that are just part of our everyday lives, but are also amazing art forms. And so there's an inherent weaving of art and culture that is just absolutely necessary, you know. It is just part of our everyday life. So yeah.
Thank you so much. That's very valuable words. And now we will come to one of my favorite parts of this webinar, because it's just interacting a bit more with our audience. And I will start asking some questions. Some of them are targeted to a specific person, and some of them are more open. For the time, some of the open questions might be answered just for a couple of people. So I will start with Candice. Someone is asking, do you teach workshops? And if yes, how can one participate?
I haven't taught a workshop since I have probably for 2 years. And with my new position with cultural survival, it might be a little while yet before I offer a workshop. But I do have an Instagram link, an Instagram page called Indigenous Gifts. And you can find me on Facebook. Candy Testa is my name on Facebook. So when I do offer a workshop, I'll be sure to post it in both of those places. Thank you for asking.
Thank you so much. And I just copy there the link so you can see the work of Candy or on Instagram. I also would like to ask, it can be voluntary, a couple people from all of you, if as an Indigenous artist has existed, like has been discrimination, has it been also difficult for being women to be an artist? What do you think? This question is from Wara Wara Mamani. Does anybody want to take this question?
I will speak to it. Well, being an Indigenous woman in general is challenging at times. People, and I can speak only to my own experience, sitting at a vending table and, at a casino, not everybody who approaches you is approaching with good intentions. And I have experienced, belittling comments and questions and challenging my indigeneity. How Native am I? Do I meet their standards of what they believe an Indigenous person is or should be? And I mention that mainly because Indigenous people come in all different shapes and sizes and colors and different hair types, and you're probably sitting beside an Indigenous person now, and you probably have Indigenous people in your classrooms, and to just, honor, be respectful of that fact. And then especially when you are on Indigenous land, so you're in my homeland, you are in the homeland of my people, of my ancestors, and to be respectful of all of us.
Thank you so much, Candice. I also would like to direct this question to Paula, dado que en Guatemala es un país con muchísima discriminación hacia la población indígena, y me gustaría saber, Paula, si ha sentido algún tipo de discriminación. ¿Ha sido más difícil porque es mujer indígena abrirse paso en el camino del arte?
Gracias. Pues cuento un poco mi historia de los años 65. Cuando yo estuve en la escuela, tuve discriminación porque soy indígena. En un 15 de septiembre me obligaron a hacer un uniforme para llevar ese día, pero lamentablemente la directora nos dijo de que todos vienen uniformados y nos enseñaron el color y la forma, pero a mí no me gusta ver una faldita pequeña y una blusa, y por el color también. Entonces yo tristemente vine a contar a mi mamá, y mi mamá me decía: no, mija, es que no tenemos dinero para hacer ese uniforme. Yo quiero hacer un tuhuipil y eso es lo que tienes que llevar. A veces me recuerda ese momento, me da tristeza porque lo sentí, la discriminación delante de mi mamá, y mi mamá empieza a ver la tristeza en su corazón, porque siempre somos discriminadas al ver a una mujer indígena. Y así fue mi historia. Vi a mi mamá tristemente, me elaboró el huipil y yo llevé. Cuando llegué en la escuela, me vio la directora, me trató como ista. Entonces para mí es un dolor muy grande, porque mi mamá empezó a elaborar unos 3 meses y con tanta alegría ella me viera al ver desfilar, pero no me dejaron salir en ese desfile. Entonces en esa manera, o en ese momento, se quedó ese trauma en mi corazón, y cuando empecé a pintar sobre lienzos, sobre tejidos, y eso es lo que tenemos que dejar, historias a nuestras futuras generaciones, porque mi indumentaria para nosotros los mayas sí vale mucho, porque cada figura tiene su propio significado, cada color también, y eso es lo que me nació en mi corazón hacer una pintura sobre el lienzo, lo traté como mi segunda piel. Y eso es lo que siempre tengo en mi corazón, lo podemos plasmar, todo lo que sentimos, lo que vivimos, lo que hacemos. Y ahora estoy muy agradecido con la gente, pues, de que me hacen esas preguntas. La verdad, para mí es un dolor muy grande. No quisiera recordar, pero eso sí se quedó plasmado en un lienzo solamente.
Muchas gracias, Paula. That is very inspiring, and I think it shows us how sometimes art expresses happiness, but also pain that we have in our heart, and it's important to let it go and to transforming into something better. I would like to go to the next question, and I believe this is an interesting word. Diana would like to know if you have original words in your language for art. So maybe Jaina, if you can share.
Well, I know, so the Chamorro language, I didn't grow up speaking the Chamorro language, so I'm not fluent in my mother tongue. And because of Spanish colonization, there's a lot of Spanish influence in the Chamorro language as well. 500 years of Spanish colonization in the Marianas. So the word that's coming to mind is storytelling, which is historia, which is Spanish. So I don't actually know personally the Chamorro word for art, which is, one of the sad things of colonization, and one of the things that I'm continuously trying to work through as someone who wants to remain connected and doesn't have access to all of the things that access is inside, the access is always within, but in terms of
Thank you, Jaina. It's very interesting what you said, because you see like art through the word story, and it's really important to see how it's like the conception of art through not just our cultures ourselves, but our own stories and backgrounds. Maybe Candice, do you have any specific word for it?
No, I'm not aware of a word for art. And I am curious whether or not my ancestors would have viewed something just based on it being art. So if there are elders out there listening to me right now, please reach out and answer this question for me. But I am aware of the fact that anytime that you embellish anything with wood burning or singing to it or speaking to it, or having a ceremony of words, or painting it, or beating it, that you are transforming this object. And within the Algonquin language in my area, there are animate nouns and inanimate nouns, and by embellishing an item, you are making it animate. You can make something, turn something from an inanimate state to an animate. So now it has spirit. It had spirit before, but the work that you did and the energy and the intention that you put into that work, you have given it even more spirit. And with that, comes a certain kind of responsibility. So now you don't treat this object like you would treat commonplace items in your home. Now it is worthy of care and attention.
Thank you so much, Candice. I would like to go to the next question. I would like to hear every question answered by you, but we just have other questions here. There's a question for Paula. She's doing some work on regards of some Mayan narratives. That's from Ava Berenstein. And she's asking if you could connect her with some indigenous illustrators to illustrate these Mayan stories. Maybe we can tape the information of Paula. Paula, maybe you can try to type your email, or if it's okay for you, we can also share later your WhatsApp. You can send an email to me, Ava. I will type my email there, so maybe we can establish some connections. You don't have to answer now, Paula, but just to let you know that maybe you can talk. So thank you. And we also have...
Yo tengo Instagram y podemos comunicar con esa persona, y también hay otras pinturas que tengo ahí, y si ella quiere venir aquí en mi casa, pues con gusto daría toda mi información, y siempre que me diga un día antes.
Gracias, Paula. So thank you very much. We have the connections there already. You can look for Paula in Instagram. Está como Paula Nicho, ¿verdad, Paula? Tiene el micrófono apagado.
Sí, Paula Nicho.
Perfecto, muchas gracias. Okay, we are going with the next question. This is a question about community building and creating relationships. How art is connecting with the community building. Maybe Sierra can answer this question.
Sure, thank you. Yeah. I think that the first thing that it does, like I said before, is it just creates a safe space to ask questions, you know, and to learn about each other. I think that oftentimes when there's not a vehicle for connection there, we've learned this habit of not just going up to a stranger and speaking with them. You know, that's the kind of this general thing in our society where we don't just go up to people we don't know and talk to them. But when you have art to share, it creates a literal reason to connect with someone. And I think that when we can have those moments of connectivity and ask each other questions and learn more about each other through our art, then we have these moments of inspiration to connect on other levels too. Maybe people walk away feeling inspired to make their own art, or maybe people walk away feeling inspired to learn more about their culture from whatever region of the world they come from. You know, maybe people walk away feeling inspired to have gatherings with each other and talk more about those things. And so, yeah, I really just think that it just creates an opportunity for safe space to connect with each other, and then build on that from there.
Thank you. Maybe Candice can also complement the answer.
Of course, my mind goes back to workshops, and there is something that happens, and that I've experienced here at Mashantucket with my own people, and specifically with a sewing workshop. I organized it. I was not the leader of the workshop, but I found the seamstresses who were willing to share their knowledge with a group. And it just happened that the majority of the people in that space were women. And it was a safe space, like as Sierra was mentioning, where, it made me realize just how brave you have to be. You have to have a certain amount of courage to express yourself artistically. You have to have courage to make mistakes. And the way it was beautiful to see the way everyone in that sewing circle interacted with one another, of helping and sharing personal stories. And, you know, it was one of the strongest experiences of community building that I have experienced in a really long time. And I think that workshops have that power of drawing people because you have a similar interest, but you end up taking away so much more than you anticipated.
Thank you so much, Candice. There's also an interesting question about the creative aging, and how do you see this relationship between creativity and aging? Has it changed? Is it the same? Maybe, I don't know, Sierra also do you want to take this question?
Can you share the question again? I'm not sure I'm interpreting it right.
Sure. Someone is asking if you could talk more about how the creativity changes through the age, and if you see there's like a relationship between getting like aging and a different type of creativity through the years.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, I think that one thing that definitely happens is that you build more confidence, more willingness to experiment with the materials and with what you're creating, and more willingness to make mistakes, as Candice was saying. I think that there's just I guess confidence that comes along with doing your art for a longer period of time. I would tend to lean to asking the elders for this question, but I feel like in many ways I'm still very very young in my art career. I've been doing the work for 25 years or so, not always with birch bark, but with art in general. And I feel like I'm always learning something new every single day. Every time that I make something, I'm learning something new. And so I think that there's still an exploration that I'm having to have, where I don't fully understand my potential with my art, because I'm still learning it, but I do think that, like I said, as you go along, just being more open to your potential of what you can create and what you share with the world, being more willing to share things that maybe in the past, when you're your younger self, you might tuck away and say, no, I'm not going to show that to the public. But just knowing that people will connect with your pieces despite what you may feel about them. So I've had many pieces that, in creating them, I might judge them. I might say, oh, that's not my best work, but then I put them out and someone deeply connects with that piece and feels really inspired by it, and gets emotional over it. And so there's a letting go that happens, where I say, okay, maybe I feel a certain way about this, but I know that someone else is going to connect in that way. So that I think that willingness to let go is also something that comes along with the aging process of being an artist.
Thank you so much for sharing. We also have a question for Jaina, and Rebecca would like to know what were other ways that you found helpful to connect to your culture.
I find for me, I got into sailing traditional canoes a couple years ago when I was staying in Saipan, and the seafaring traditions were lost in the Spanish times. So there's kind of like a few hundred years like knowledge gap in terms of, you know, Chamorro sailing. And so for me, especially as someone from the diaspora, someone who grew up away from the homeland, and you know, I've gone back to visit and I've always been connected with my family, but it was for me a beautiful tradition to be practicing and to be learning from, as like the community as a whole is relearning traditions that were lost and practices that were lost. So that was something that helped me connect. And of course, always just like talking with my grandparents, having conversations with my grandpa and just asking about his life, asking about what he thinks of things, about what things were like when he was a kid, and hearing any stories or wisdom from my grandparents and my relatives is another way that I feel connected.
Thank you so much, Jaina. There's also a question about how you have encouraged intergenerational exchange, because it's often a concern that the art is not being passed down through the different generations for the lack of interest, misconceptions, the colonization as well, the influence, many reasons. So have you had, or have you developed some initiatives to transmit the art to the newer generations? Maybe Paula, tal vez puede contestar si ha tenido alguna experiencia transmitiendo el conocimiento a nuevas generaciones.
Pues yo diría de que todos tenemos ese compromiso, porque hablar arte abarcamos muchas cosas. Por ejemplo, aquí en San Juan Comalapa hay muchos artistas, tanto en la pintura, en la música y poesías, y también hay un grupo de mujeres que hacen teatro aquí. Pues para mí todo eso tenemos que unirnos para compartir o para hacer cosas de arte delante pues en las escuelas, qué sé yo, si dan oportunidad en otros lugares. Pues solo así podemos dejar esas herencias, esas historias para las futuras generaciones.
Thank you so much, Paula. También, I also have a question here. In places where attempted genocide have caused teachings to be left behind, do you have experience where art and community conversations around art projects can spark remembering cultural knowledge? I don't know if Candice, maybe do you want to take this one?
Well, the relearning of an Indigenous language is an opportunity to relearn, or as an elder, a much respected elder in this area had said, a remembering, an opportunity to remember, you know, what we may have temporarily forgot. And with the language revitalization efforts here in Southern New England, you know, it started with Jessie Little Dobert, and you know, we all owe her just so much for the time and tears and frustration and knowledge that she has compiled and shared with the communities here. And there is these moments of magic when you not only learn a new word, such as you know, the word for strawberry, watahum. So watahum, strawberry, okay, that you learn this word, and at a time that was enough, but then to learn that, oh, watahum means heartberry. So, that now just opened up this window of questions like, oh, why is it called heartberry? And, the Narragansetts have a story. And I believe, the Wampanoags have a story. There's a story that exists here of the first strawberry. So it's learning the word and learning the breakdown of the word to its individual parts. And I know I'm talking about language arts now and not, a tangible art. But for me, it's so beautiful and growth giving, and being able to find ways of incorporating your Indigenous language in any work that you're doing, if it's in theater or, painting. And for me, I will one day incorporate it into my beadwork, is a way of making it so that our language will never be sleeping again. They referred to it as a dead language, and I loved what Jessie Lildo said when she said it was never dead. It was just sleeping. So to relearn the language and to share it in our artwork is definitely a goal.
Thank you so much. We have other questions, but unfortunately the time is just passing so fast. The last question will be from Purna Shobha. Is asking that due to the globalized market system increasing the power and influence of big entrepreneurs, Indigenous arts often are displaced or are in danger. So how can we prevent that? Maybe Jaina can share.
Sorry, can you state the question again?
Yes, sure. As I said, the globalized market, it's threatening the Indigenous arts, and how can we prevent that the arts of Indigenous peoples will disappear or will be in danger?
I think as long as there are Indigenous people creating art, the art won't disappear. As long as we exist, the art exists. And I think, I'm not too sure about, globalized markets and this is a very big, broad question. I wonder if any of the other panelists can speak to it more, especially when, creating tangible artworks and having the market for it. But I believe as long as there are Indigenous people making art, the art will exist. And I think one of the benefits of the world that we are living in and tools like social media is that to some degree it's easier to share and to share art amongst a wider audience, like what we're doing right now, like having conversations with people from around the globe. Is a way in which technology can benefit the conversations we're having, benefit the art that we're making. But I'm curious what the other panelists think.
Thank you so much, Jaina. Unfortunately, we came almost to the end of our webinar. I just would like to highlight some of the important points that our artists discussed today. When everyone came to some common points, how they started to be an artist. Family was important, these connections and relationships, but also the teachings, like the wisdom that has been taught through generations. It was from the mothers, from the fathers, from the grandparents. All of them have some elements in common. And this is very rewarding to know as how Indigenous community, how Indigenous relationships are linked to art. When it came about inspiration, they also were sharing many elements in common. Nature was one of the topics of the inspirations that had in common. The flow, also the energy that was changing and combining, and the wisdom of the ancestry also came to the art. Somehow was the kind of inspiration when creating things. And they were also talking about the biggest achievements. And how they can inspire people, how can they empower and awake feelings in people. It's something that they also mentioned, and how other people appreciate their art, how they being connected to different people, how they have traveled to different countries, how they've been supported by other people. It's something that they mentioned, and they finally said that how the art can preserve and help Indigenous peoples to express. It's part of their lives. It's someone was saying it's their, in many cases, it's their livelihood. It comes directly from the artist, and it helps to support families. Someone else mentioned, Paula, I think, was the one that mentioned that it's a canvas when they put their stories, their learnings, what they value, the different expression. It's suffering sometimes, it's happening, it's different feelings, and it can be healing. It can be healing. Jaina said it's storytelling is a connection with ancestors, and it's powerful. There's a lot of wisdom that is transmitted from generation to generation, and it's just tied to Indigenous peoples. It's something that belongs to Indigenous peoples, and as Jaina said, as long as Indigenous people exist, art also will exist. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Sorry if I missed one of the questions, but we came to the end. I want to thank you for being with us in this webinar. And if you like what you learned, please consider donating through our website, cs.org/donate, to support our work and to keep organizing this webinar. If you want to know and keep up with us for future events, please follow our social media platforms. And you can also sign up for the newsletter through our website to receive direct email notifications. Thank you, and until the next time. Bye-bye.